Hello and welcome back to the Busby Way Podcast. After a slightly delayed start due to some congestion on the train lines. Chris, how are you doing?
I am good, mate. Yourself?
Yes, I'm all right. I've rushed. I've literally just got in, sat down, not even grabbed myself a drink. I've just sat straight down, and we're now live on Manchester TV as per usual. Right, where do we get into it? Because it's been a while since me and you have spoke. Really, we haven't spoke since Leeds.
Yeah. It was certainly pre-derby. We had
Well,
a
yeah,
week
that,
off,
that
didn't we?
that was awful. You've done the clips for that, haven't you? And we rightfully, I think, deservedly had a few weeks off after that. But no, we played Spurs at the weekend. It was a massive game for top four, really, wasn't it? Because they're in and abouts, and there's games in hand here and games in hand there. And yes, if Arsenal win the 3 games in hand, they go 10 points clear of us. But also, them games in hand are now against, I think it's Spurs, Liverpool and Chelsea, I think. That's
Yeah,
where the
I
games
know
in
they
hand are
played
against.
Liverpool on Wednesday.
Yeah. So you see, yeah. So I mean, it's up in the air very much of who's going to get top four. But this game was huge for that. I think if United lost this game, I think you may as well discount our whole top four hopes for this season.
Mm-hmm.
But United did win 3-2. Showed a bit of character. I think that's one thing that we've said a few times during this season. Yes, they've been very, very poor at times, but there's also been times where they've shown a bit of character. And we weren't the best yesterday, but we still did show elements of a team that maybe that's what you'd want to look like in the future. A team that can fight back when they do go behind, and can push on through. We're going to do this a bit differently, Chris. I think the best way to do this, instead of just talking at me saying, what did you think the game was like, or what did you make of the game? We're going to take the 3 biggest talking points from a match day. I think that's how I think it's best probably
Mm-hmm.
to do this. So you take the 3 biggest talking points, and then we'll discuss that rather than just say we were awful again. We were
Yeah.
awful again, because that's how it's been. It's been very repetitive in the last few weeks. So we're going to do it slightly differently. The first one for me is the obvious one, I think, is Cristiano Ronaldo scored the hat-trick. And he's been under a lot of criticism in the last few weeks as Ronaldo's. A lot of the media saying he's done and he can't do it anymore. And maybe he's got too big of an ego with him allegedly not showing up to the Man City game due to an injury, or there was rumours going around that he wasn't and he just had his ego hurt. Is Cristiano Ronaldo finished, Chris? That is the question I want to pose to you. Or did the weekend prove that he still can do it at the highest level?
He's not finished because you don't have that sort of consistency over such a long period of time to finish within a season, or within half a season, really. And like at the start of the season, he was carrying United, and he just let's be brutally honest, he hasn't been himself for a good few games, which has brought on these inevitable questions. But if he wasn't Ronaldo, then we wouldn't even be having the conversation about it, because his standards are so high. All he has to do is not score for 2 games, and it's a goal drought for him. So for it to have gone on as long as it did, I think sort of exaggerated the claims that he was no longer ready to play at this level. He proved yesterday that form is temporary, class is permanent, as the old saying goes, because the first goal is just trademark Ronaldo into it, gets out of his feet and just whacks it, top bins. Superb goal. Second one is proper striker's finish. Third one, trademark leap. So yeah, obviously, we rightly we've said on this podcast that he hasn't been performing to the levels he should be. Ronaldo himself will know that. But we saw just what the man can still do. You do need players who can just come up with those moments of individual brilliance, and he's done it at the weekends. And there's always that comparison with Lionel Messi. I don't hear the same stuff said about him He's only scored 2 goals this season and got booed by his own fans at the weekend. So I think, it's greatly exaggerated the demise of the great Cristiano Ronaldo.
I was just going to say that. Funny enough, across the water, a certain greatest player in the world isn't doing so great at the minute, is he? They are struggling at PSG. They seem to want everyone gone. I don't know if you saw the reports that come out on the weekend, really, about Pochettino. I never know how to pronounce his name, but the chairman's name, the sporting directors, and Neymar Mbappe are all leaving PSG in summer. So, I mean, take of that what you will. Will Man United probably go for the easy option and get Poch on a free? Probably. However, I don't think that's what they should be doing. The next talking point for me, Harry Maguire. He scored an own goal, which, I mean, yes, he couldn't have done a lot about it. In his head, if he'd let that go, it'd have gone in. Yes, it'd have been offside, but he wasn't to know at the time. He's been under a lot of criticism in the last few weeks as Maguire, pretty much like most of the team, really. But because he's the captain, he's kind of the focal point of it. What needs to happen with Maguire? You know, is he fit to be captain? Where do we go from here with him now?
I think I've always questioned his leadership abilities. He's never struck me as the most vocal character in the dressing room. And it was always going to be about how he led as a performer on the pitch. And frankly, that's not been at the level of a Manchester United captain. We can all see that. But we know there's a player in there based on what he's done for England in major tournaments on a very consistent basis. So there's clearly a good centre-half there. I don't think there's a good captain, though. I think he would greatly benefit from that responsibility being pushed elsewhere. And I firmly believe if we do that, I think his game will get back to those consistent levels we see for, like I said earlier, we see for England. I also think it's always difficult to take the captaincy away from somebody who's in the first team and regularly playing partway through a season. I think that's a very big call, and especially with Ranić only being interim, it's a massive call for him to make. So I'm not surprised by the fact that it looks as though he's going to be captain until the end of the season, but I would be beyond amazed if he's captain next season, really. But then again, you would probably struggle to find someone who's the perfect captain. I'd be leaning towards a Fernandes in terms of the ones who's probably guaranteed to play. Ronaldo's probably not the best option for a captain because it's a very short-term fix. But I suppose it would be an option. Bruno's obviously a longer-term option.
Where was he at the weekend?
I think he may have had COVID. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a legitimate injury or illness.
I didn't see that. I didn't actually find that out. I'll have a look later.
But yeah, I think he would be an obvious candidate for captain, as would probably Scott McTominay. But it's whether his place is under threat if we bring in a midfielder. But I suppose, the midfielder I think we all want is Declan Rice, who is the West Ham captain. And for me, would be a good fit as Manchester United captain because he leads by example on and off the pitch. His performances levels are sensational. I've seen the clip of him effectively setting up the second West Ham goal today, and it's great play from him. So he would be a signing who could come in and do the role. In terms of who's there currently, Bruno Fernandes is probably the one who I think is most likely to possibly be a successor. But yeah, I think across football, there's not the sort of captains, old school captains like a Roy Keane or a Cantona who seemingly inspire in actions and words anymore. So yeah, I think it's a tough role. But yeah, I certainly don't think Harry Maguire's got the right personality to be it. And I think it would be better for him and Manchester United to to not have him in that role going forward beyond the end of this season.
I just read here, it did say Bruno's ill, not with COVID, he just said he was ill, but he hopefully should be back for Tuesday, so that's good. You also mentioned there as well about captaincy and, with Maguire. I was sat there and I couldn't help but think it in the Spurs game when that own goal went in and all the social media mocking he gets. He's slowly following the path of Phil Jones, and I know that's a comedic thing because of this reputation Phil Jones has got now, but this is exactly what happened with Phil Jones. He used to play week in, week out, and he was seen as maybe a slight leader, but not a massive leader. He was never captain, but he was seen as a leader, and he was just scrutinized on social media, and he ended up just continued to perform badly, and it led to him getting dropped. Whether that'll happen because of his wages and the price tag they paid for him, who knows? But yeah, you've got to feel for Maguire because his confidence is shot at the minute. It really is. He can't catch a break, and I think he's crying out for the end of the season to come sooner rather than later, just so he can get across the line and get in with that new manager and have a fresh start. Another person I think who feels similar really is Marcus Rashford. He did start at the weekend, but again, wasn't good enough for me. I mean, he just was very lacklustre again. Didn't seem bothered. What do you make of Rashford? Because there was the rumours coming out earlier this week that he, was considering his future and maybe looking to leave. And is that just him throwing his toys out the pram because he's not getting game time? What do you make of all those?
I think in terms of his performance, I think the most telling thing was I was listening to the game because I was driving back from work, listening to the first half, and the commentator on TalkSport, Sam Matterface, genuinely said that he forgot that Rashford was playing because he hadn't touched the ball, which is telling, really, because especially playing in such a prominent position. So there's clearly something wrong with his game at the minute. It was obviously telling that in the derby, we decided to go with the two centre mids playing centre forward rather than a centre forward or somebody who can play that role, i.e. Marcus Rashford. So there's clearly a disconnect between player and manager. When he has played this season, he's not been at the levels he's set in previous years. I still do think that, obviously, at the Euros, he was a bit part player and was given a big responsibility when he came on to take a crucial penalty in the final and missed that. I don't think he's mentally recovered from that. I really don't. Especially, and I draw a big comparison between him and Bukayo Saka at Arsenal because obviously they both missed penalties, and even Jadon Sancho, of course. And you just see, obviously, Sancho now is he's starting to play well, seemingly recovered. Bukayo Saka's better this season than he was last season. He's been outstanding for Arsenal. He seems to have grown as a player because of that adversity, whereas Rashford seems to have shrunk a little bit. I just don't see the confidence there in the player, and I think he was always a confident player with a bit of swagger about him. That's just gone. But I still think he could be one of these where he just needs to score 2 or 3 goals in quick fire and we could start to get that form and confidence back. I think he's a real confidence player. And obviously, he burst onto the scene, didn't he? And stole all the headlines and was consistent for a good couple of years, playing at a really high level. And for him to drop off the way he has is really noticeable. And whether just a lot of expectation on him and from himself, I don't know if that's weighing. I don't buy too much into the fact of whether his off-field stuff is impacting his on-field stuff. I really don't think it would. I'd like to think it wouldn't, at least. So, yeah, I just think he's just really lacking confidence. Maybe he needs a manager to put arm around his shoulder and say, look, mate, you're actually a top player. You just need to get a goal and it'll change for you. Whether Ranić's doing that, I don't know. But in terms of his future, would a loan move possibly be an option for him? Possibly, but I
Do you
think
think he will go? Do you think he will go?
I think if the right club come for him, I think he'd be tempted. I really do. Because he might just feel as though he needs a fresh start. He's got to a point where he feels as though he can't get back to what he was at Manchester United. And I think if a club comes calling for him who believe in him, then yeah. Because ultimately, if the United coaching staff don't believe he's good enough to be there, then yeah, I think from a football perspective, he should move. But I really still do think it will turn around for him. So hopefully something will happen before the end of the season just to get him into the groove again, have a good pre-season. Because don't forget, he basically missed pre-season as well because he had a bit of an injury. So yeah, I hope that at worst next season we'll see a stronger, fitter, more energetic Marcus Rashford playing for Manchester United.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think the big factor in that is United's lack of attacking options, I think, which is why he'll stay. I don't think United would even let him go, to be honest with you. I think even if he's not up to the standard, I think maybe if right, put it this way, if United don't get Champions League, Cavani's gone, Ronaldo's gone, Martial probably will go because of the just lack of quality he has and the lack of belief that he has, depending on the new manager, to be fair. But that leaves you with Sancho, but he can't play for the middle. Alanga, but he's not an out-and-out striker. And Rashford. And that's all we've got. And I don't think they go so bare in them front positions because that would mean they have to spend more money, and that's not what they want to do. Quickly then, Chris, yes or no answer. Very, very quick. Based on what games are left and who's got what to play, will United get top four?
No.
Do you not think they will?
No, I watched Arsenal today. They look far better.
You think?
Yeah, I think the fact they've got games in hand as well, because they could still lose all three of those and still be ahead of us. Yeah. But I think they'll cause Liverpool problems in midweek as well. Anyway, I would not be surprised to see them get points. Big thing is that they're keeping clean sheets and scoring goals and playing some really nice football with players looking really confident about what they're doing, and they seem to have they've found their way of playing now, and they look in the groove. Granted, they've not done it particularly well in the high pressure, big stakes games. We'll wait and see. Ultimately, they're going to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
If they can get the results in those, I don't see anybody catching them. I think they're ultimately the favourites. I would say we're probably second favourites because we beat Tottenham. I think obviously Tottenham have probably blown it with the recent run of like losing to Burnley, for example, after such good work against Manchester City. So yeah, I think it's West Ham are obviously still in the conversation. I think Wolves are still in the conversation. Yeah. They're just quietly going along, just getting the results and playing good football as well. But yeah, I would say Arsenal at the minute just edge it because they're playing better and have potentially 9 points to put between us and them. If they don't get those results, and if, it does still stay a 1 point gap when the game's even out, then yeah, it's on again. But yeah, I still think that they're in pole position, just because of, like I said, the way they're playing. They're just in better form, and you could see them getting more wins.
It'll come down massively to that game at their place on the 23rd, really, in April, won't it? That'll be the...
Yeah, if we're in striking distance, that could be pivotal, because I think if we can get above them from that game, whether the games have evened out fully by then, I don't know, but even if it's like down to just one game in hand, if we've gone in front of them, then it's all about Arsenal's mentality that we know is, we don't know too much about right now, because like I said, they've not really done it in the high stakes pressure games, but they've all been early in the season without as much pressure. So there's that element of things. But yeah, I think if we can be in striking distance and not have them with games and possibly points in hand, then that could be a big game. But realistically, if we lost that game, regardless of the placings, points in hand, games in hand, whatever, then that would be it. Really, I think if we're not clear of them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, speaking of top four, Champions League, midweek is our second leg game against Atletico Madrid. It's 1-1 on aggregate, and it's at our place. So realistically, you would expect and you'd hope United would win this. However, given their performance in Madrid, how awful we were, do you expect us to go through Tuesday night, Chris?
Tough one. It was a bit of a smash and grab, wasn't it, getting the point. We hung on for that first half hour. They absolutely battered us, and 3 or 4-0 at that point probably would have been about right, realistically. We got away with one, I think. I thought second half in that game we were okay, and obviously got a good goal through Elanga. We've got to start this game well. We can't let them start as well as they did in that first leg. We've got to take the game to them, because like I said when we was previewing the last the first leg, they do have the ability to spoil games, and if you concede within 5 minutes, it's going to be an awful game, because they'll just park the bus and look to counter and just break the game up. Crucial that we get that first goal. If Atletico get it, then I think my confidence just drains right there and then. The likes of you can just see Luis Suarez netting. It's just written for him to net, isn't it?
Yeah. We said that, didn't we, in the first leg?
Yeah, probably like 89th minute to send it to extra time or something. But yeah,
I can't stand
that first goal. I know, Good. Scott McTominay can fly right through him for like a take one for the team. But yeah, in all seriousness, it's that first goal is massively crucial, because I don't see us turning it around to win 2-1 if we go 1 goal behind, and they got the quality to be able to counter attack from 1-0 up. But I think if we go 1-0 up, that's got to open them up. And we've seen this season when they have been a bit more open at times, they have been hurt. Because I'd seen a stat earlier that Jan Oblak has got, in terms of rankings in terms of saves to goals, he's like 139th out of 140 in the top 5 leagues or something stupid like that. Yeah, his shot to save ratio is ridiculously low.
Really?
And apparently there's 10 goals that he's conceded that he shouldn't. I don't know how they measure these stats, but I read it before. I was like, wow, that's crazy considering.
What do you expect really for a keeper of that ability?
Yeah, I think he's just had one of those seasons.
Yeah, right.
Because Atletico have been a bit leakier, based on stats and whatnot. So they can be got at, but we know Simeone. He's going to be a live wire on that touchline.
Yeah, it will. Yeah,
and he's just going to push his side on. We've got to match their energy and their intensity. But it'd be interesting to see how we approach it, really. But yeah, it's such a tough one to call. But to answer the original question, I think we might just sneak it. I'm going to be, for once, I'm going to be confident and say we're going to sneak it, because I just think having scored his hat trick, he loves playing against Atletico.
We said this, didn't we? In the first leg, we said this.
Yeah, I think it's short odds on him bagging. It's his competition. Come on, he's going to do it for us. He'll drag us through again.
Well, watch this when he does nothing again and coasts around and doesn't score.
Yeah,
it's Atletico midweek. But yeah, I must admit, I am I'm nervous, but I'm quietly confident, if that makes sense. And we were talking, me and other United fans in fairy tale land the other day. You get past Atletico, right? A lot of ifs in this. There's a lot of ifs.
Oh, yeah.
But if you get past Atletico and you get the draw of either Benfica or Ajax, you're in a semi-final. Really? I don't know if I'd bet against us against Ajax, but maybe Benfica.
Ten Hag would probably put us out on it and then take the job.
But Benfica, you're then in a semi-final of a Champions League, and then it is anyone's game. It really is anyone's game because you got a puncher's chance at that point. So who knows? We'll see. Cue me saying that and us going out on Tuesday night. So
we'll get City. If we get through, we'll get City at Liverpool anyway.
Don't. Liverpool in Champions League is just... We'll get tonked about 10-0 over 2 legs. Ridiculous. But yeah, and then after that, really, after that Atletico game, we're not actually due to play until the 2nd of April. It's quite a long way until we play again, just because the Liverpool game got postponed at the weekend. So we were supposed to play them next weekend, and then it's obviously been postponed. I think it's because they're getting the Cup now, I think. Yeah,
they're in the FA Cup.
FA Cup, yeah. So that's why it's been postponed. So got a bit of a break in between now and April, till the start of April. Do you think we'll benefit from that, or?
Yeah, I think given the fact that we're not going to be playing Liverpool in that period, might be good.
Yeah. Last game of the season, roll it on for Champions League. Cost them the league.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, between obviously the start of April and when the season ends, 3rd week of May, there's not many midweeks, especially if Liverpool or United or both go far in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So there's a distinct possibility it could be played very late in the season.
Well, I think it'll be played in between that Palace and Chelsea and Palace game.
The last 2 games. I think there's a big chance it could go there. Which would be, I mean, I would quite like that. Because
they could lift the title against us.
Yeah, but we could also stop them, which is the
well,
thing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Do you want to run that risk?
Actually, let's play a couple of weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And then doesn't matter either way, does it?
I prefer that. That sounds better. But speaking of Chelsea, they've had some worrying news for themselves as a club this week. We won't talk about that because, quite frankly, I've got my opinion on that.
It's a minefield.
It's a minefield, isn't it? And it's let's be realistic. If they liquidate, I would absolutely crease. I know it's awful for the fans, but it'd be hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Just because of all the rivalries we've had over the years in that Mourinho era and them being the most successful club of the last decade and blah blah blah. But the reason I bring that up is their manager. Now, you'll be able to find a clip on this podcast somewhere from me months ago saying about Thomas Tuchel not being happy at Chelsea and his mates with Rangnick. I sound like Andy Tate here. His best mates with Fergie. His mates with Rangnick. I said, could Thomas Tuchel be a possibility? And everyone laughed at me. Now, when everyone laughed at me, I stuck £1 on it at 40-1. He's now 7-2 to be United manager.
Wow.
So, I mean... Would you take Tuchel over the options that we potentially could have? That's a stupid question.
That's a stupid question, of course I would. And I think, there's always been that phrase, elite manager. This guy's an elite manager. Just in, the way he's been speaking in the media around the situation going on at Chelsea is, he speaks so well. He's won the big trophies end of the day. He won Champions League within 6 months with an okay Chelsea team. Let's be honest, it's not a brilliant Chelsea team. He's won the Champions League. He's won the World Club Cup. Yeah, you only have to win 2 games to actually win it, but fair play. Got to a League Cup final where, but for Kepa being an absolute weapon, then they could easily won that. And I mean, there was a god-awful VAR decision in that as well. So they really should have won that cup final. And he's kept them going in difficult circumstances. They were bang average today, but won. But I think, he's the close, you've got Klopp and Guardiola, who are that top tier. Tuchel is definitely in that next bracket for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And, if you say compare Tuchel and Pochettino in terms purely based on what they've done and are doing at PSG, Tuchel's done more. He got them to a Champions League final.
Yeah.
And they should never really got rid of him. Let's be honest.
No.
He was doing a good job and probably would have won them the Champions League at some point because, well, he did it.
Yeah, anyone in his squad needed it.
Yeah. He's not afraid to bruise egos.
No.
Because that's what he did at PSG.
That's why they didn't like him at PSG as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously they have the superstars.
Exactly. And I think tracksuit managers are the way forward. Because, well...
Tracksuit managers? What a...
Because, Klopp's clearly doing it.
Should we get Tony Pulis in?
I mean, but,
that's a great
managers in suits are clearly not the way forward because Guardiola never wears a suit, does he?
No, he wears Stone Island, to be fair to him.
He's a good dresser. Whereas
I don't know about that. Some of his things he wears are questionable.
that the way Manchester, where it's just got 3 letters to don't even read Manchester. Yeah, that's a bit questionable. But he's different. So I think in that regard, you either go for Tuchel or Nagelsmann, who's the best dressed manager I've ever seen. So
well, there's that.
Basically, what I'm saying is we need to get a German that's not Ralf Rangnick.
Right. Okay. Well, I've got a question to you. I've got red pill or blue pill, right?
Go on.
Yeah. Eric Ten Hag takes over at the end of next season, or Thomas Tuchel takes over it's the end of this season. Who would you rather?
I think I would rather Tuchel.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously he's already doing it in the Premier League and doing fairly well. Chelsea's title race evaporated, but I think that's some of the players he has aren't of the level that he needs. Werner and Lukaku, for example.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the performances anyway. But I mean, if, any manager was available other than, the obvious two, Guardiola and Klopp, Tuchel will probably be top of your list. Ten Hag would probably be second. Pochettino would be third. That's my order anyway.
Especially given this week in the Champions League, for me, that confirms it with Pochettino. With the way they went out, I would much rather Ten Hag than Pochettino. I think. Now I know I was quoted a few weeks ago saying I was excited maybe by the idea of Pochettino, but saying that now, it's just reminding me why you wouldn't.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think we'd end up too much playing like that, and it just would not work. And I think Ten Hag would get a different type of player to Tuchel. I think Ten Hag would be better at spotting these gems because he's clearly done it at Ajax and sold them on for burn money, hasn't it? A lot of the time. But yeah, I think Tuchel's better at working with the big egos and knows how to manage them, and he's not afraid to, like I said earlier, bruise a few egos to do the best thing for the team. So yeah, dream scenario would be Tuchel, but I mean Ten Hag would not be a bad option either. I think one of those two. If I was Manchester United now, the hierarchy, I'd be, I think Paul Merson said on Tuckel's out of day, I'd be tapping Tuchel up right away, put a few feelers out there, see if he's at all interested if the situation changes at Chelsea. If he's, definitely wanting to stay there regardless, then close the door on it and go for Ten Hag before you lose him to somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be it, because ultimately Ten Hag will be courted by every other big club that's thinking we might fancy a change here. Or
I could even see him going to Chelsea. Actually, I think if Tuchel ended up with us, I could see Ten Hag going the other way.
100%. So I think it's one of those two you got to go for. And I'd be making inquiries straight to Tuchel's agent and just getting a feel of what the situation is, because I think we need to make the appointment very close to just after the end of the season, really, to give whoever it is the time to bed in and look to make those transfers, because it's a shorter pre-season with it being moved forward because of the World Cup, so less time to get in and do things. We can't be leaving it to last minute. It's bad enough trying to sign players. Got to get the manager sorted.
Well, if you get your manager sorted early, the manager can then prep himself for who he wants to bring in the summer and start work on that.
Yeah, but one of the interviews Tuchel did on Sky Sports during the week that was shown on TV today, he was asked whether he's, in the situation Chelsea are in, obviously they can't sign anybody. He was being asked, is he still sort of looking at players and drawing up like a short list of transfers, carried on business as usual? And he said he was. So that to me would be a case of whether he was at Chelsea or whether he was at United, he's going to want to play the same way with the same players. He'll be thinking, if I get him in this position, build a team around him. That is the sort of thing I fully imagine, because he seems such an intelligent football man as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think I think he's intelligent enough to know that Chelsea might just nosedive. Genuinely, the club might die. So
it's that I know. I said it was. I think it'd be hilarious if it happened. But like, joking aside, that would be, as a fan, that would be awful. Absolutely. Yeah. Can you imagine? I remember talking to one of my mates who's a United fan, and he said, I'm actually looking at this enviously that our owners aren't having it. It's not happening to us. But at the same time, yes, how bad the guys are, but I wouldn't want the football club to fold. No chance.
No.
It's awful. And living, I saw the article today on the BBC that said they're judging every single day by day, and they're taking it, literally playing it by ear, which is an absolute dreadful way to run a football club.
Yeah, and I read something, this is 3 or 4 days ago, saying they could run out of money in 81 days. So I think they're already down to like 77 days, purely because of the wages and all the expenses of playing the games and completing the season. But they can't get anything to offset that because there's no money coming in. So in 2 months, that club could be gone. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that based on what I've been reading. So, yeah, and in that situation, Tuchel will have to be, his agent will be assessing every possible option, and because that's what he's paid to do by Thomas Tuchel, to make sure he's in a job for as long as possible. So it is such an evolving situation, but yeah, on the fact whether how awful it is for fans, I can't imagine it, because even obviously they're not the same stature as a Macclesfield and a Bury, but when those two clubs went under, I know people who support both of those clubs who basically lost their clubs and they had to be born again. It's like ripping the soul out of a community, and whatever you think of the people of Chelsea or Chelsea fans or Chelsea Football Club, all I would say is you've got to think of it as if it was your club.
Yeah.
If Manchester United was in this situation, I'd be very, very worried.
But I would, but also be happy with getting rid of Glazers. So either or.
But I think what it does highlight is how delicate it is when you're so reliant on one person or one entity. Yeah.
I've said this countless times to my uncle who's a Chelsea fan. I said, if our owners walked away tomorrow, we'd probably be better off. We'd be able to keep afloat. Your owners walk away tomorrow, you're ruined. And it's showing. I think it's very much showing that with Abramovich's asset being frozen, that they're really, really going to struggle. What I can see happening is they'll eventually be allowed to sell the club. I think that's what will happen.
I think that would be the right decision.
Yes, and I do as well. I think just because of the amount of money they make for the country, think about that in terms of a government perspective. It's going to make no financial sense getting rid of Chelsea.
For the local economy, jobs, and there'll be hundreds of people potentially out of work if that club goes under.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah. What I could see is that maybe it allows Celtic, maybe even getting a Rangers and going down a few divisions. I could maybe see that as a
Yeah.
punishment. Who knows? But even so, that's not great for a club of that size.
And I think what it would be, it'd be expulsion from the EFL, so it'd be National League that they have to go. So they'd be playing the likes of Boreham Wood and
FC United.
Well, they could get them in like the FA Trophy or something. But yeah, I think they would have to be treated like the same way as Bury were.
Yeah.
An expulsion from the Football League, and I think it would take a very brave man to say you have to start from the Northwest Counties. But I think it'll. Yeah, it's such.
That's talking a long way. I think that what will end up happening, they'll be allowed to be bought out. I think that's what will end up happening, and nothing further will be said.
I'd like to think so. Even if they just get hit with a massive points deduction, start next season. Let's face it, they were given 25 points deduction. They'd still stay up.
No. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's such an evolving situation. We're saying this now. Come 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, they might be saved. They might be gone. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very, very up in the air, and it's as a Chelsea fan, I can see why a lot of them are worried. But we'll wrap that up there because we all of a sudden turned into the Chelsea podcast.
I know, yeah.
For a second. But yeah, catch more chats out on the Box to Box podcast that goes out every Wednesday. Check that out. Every Tuesday. It's every Tuesday that goes out. Sorry, that's me getting.
Can you just use that clip that we've just done?
There you go. Yeah, you can use that. There you go, David. Have a load of that. But thank you for watching. Make sure you check out all the content out on local TV. As I said, there's the Box to Box podcast that goes on a Tuesday night. There's also other content, not just football wise. They do general content as well. And there's there on the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So make sure you go check that out. We should be back next week, Chris, but I don't know with us only having the Atletico Madrid game. I imagine we'll review that and then...
Probably depends on the result again.
Yes. If we lose...
If we get tanked...
we'll see you in April. But if we don't, then we'll be more than happy to come on at the weekend and gloat about being in the Champions League quarter-final. But yeah, thank you for joining me, Chris, as per usual, and we will see you next time.